I am Emily Harper, a 19-year-old girl living in the suburbs of Pennsylvania, where endless cornfields stretch to the horizon and highways like I-76 lead you through dreams and memories. I'm a first-year college student who loves writing, stargazing, and quiet moments with my family, my mother, Laura, and my 12-year-old brother, Ethan, whose innocent smile always makes me laugh. My life isn't particularly extraordinary, but I always try to live authentically, love those around me, and find meaning in the little things, just like my father used to teach me to look up at the night sky and dream big. On December 15, 2024, my father, David, passed away in a car accident, leaving behind a void that can never be filled. That pain drove me to decide, with my mom and Ethan, to take a trip to Colorado on June 8, 2025, a place where our family once spent summer vacations full of laughter. I wanted to rediscover a piece of the past, even if just a fragment of memory. But fate had other plans. On June 10, 2025, on a slippery road in Ohio during a heavy downpour, a truck veered into our lane and, in a horrific collision, took my breath away. I died, or at least, I thought I did. Then a mysterious voice echoed, declaring I was the chosen one. Why? I had no idea. But my story, my journey, began in that moment when the line between life and death blurred, and I had to find answers for myself. Now, I will tell you the story of that day, and what happened afterward. The early morning sun on June 8, 2025, cast soft golden rays across the hills of suburban Pennsylvania, painting the I-76 highway in hues of warmth. Our family's silver minivan glided smoothly, accompanied only by the faint hum of the morning news on the radio. I, Emily Harper, 19 years old, sat in the front passenger seat, my gaze drifting out the window, where endless fields of corn stretched into the distance. My mother, Laura, gripped the steering wheel, her tired but sharp eyes occasionally glancing my way, as if she wanted to say something but chose silence instead. In the back seat, my 12-year-old brother, Ethan, dozed off, his head resting against the window, his soft snores blending with the quiet rhythm of the drive. I knew my mother was uneasy about this trip. I could sense her hesitation, as if she wished I'd stayed at college to finish the semester rather than embark on this uncertain journey. But I had made up my mind days ago, driven by the lingering ache of losing my father. On December 15, 2024, my father, David, was taken from us in a car accident on this very highway. A slippery curve stole him away, leaving a void in my heart that nothing could fill. I needed to be with my mother and Ethan, even if just for this fleeting moment, to reclaim some fragment of the family we once were before everything shattered. I adjusted the gray knit beanie on my head, trying to push away the memories of my father that surged like waves. He was a storyteller, always making Ethan and me laugh with his silly jokes. He taught me how to fish, how to identify constellations in the night sky. Now, the air in the van was heavy with silence, oppressive and suffocating. I glanced at Ethan, still fast asleep, his face innocent and unburdened. Watching him, I wondered if he was dreaming of our father or simply lost in the carefree slumber of youth. I wished I could return to those days, when life was simple, when our family was whole. This trip was headed to Colorado, where we had spent unforgettable summer vacations. A small cabin by a lake, where my father taught Ethan and me to row a boat and shared stories about the stars. I hoped returning there would help me recapture a piece of those days, even if just a fleeting memory. Deep down, though, I knew nothing could fill the emptiness my father left behind. The journey stretched into its second day, June 10th, 2025, as we navigated narrow roads in Ohio. Rain began to fall, thick droplets pounding the windshield, creating a steady rhythm like a storm's heartbeat. I noticed my mother slow down, her hands tightening on the wheel, struggling to keep the van steady on the slick road. I sat still, clutching the armrest, my heart pounding. An uneasy premonition stirred within me, as if something was waiting for us ahead. Ethan, in the back, was engrossed in a game on his phone, earbuds plugged in, oblivious to the looming danger. I stared out the window, trying to convince myself everything would be fine. But then, a truck from the opposite direction suddenly swerved into our lane, barreling toward us like a monstrous shadow. I wanted to scream, to warn my mother, but it happened too fast. She jerked the wheel, but the slippery road offered no mercy. The sound of metal colliding roared like an explosion, tearing through the air. My body was flung forward, my head slamming against the window. Pain seared through me, a burning fire. Then darkness swallowed me whole, and in that final moment, my only thought was of my mother and Ethan, praying they were safe. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the van. I stood in a vast, white expanse, no walls, no floor, just an endless void. My body felt weightless, as if gravity no longer held me. Strangest of all, I felt no pain. No blood, no wounds, though the memory of the crash replayed vividly in my mind, like a slow-motion film on an endless loop. "You," a deep, resonant voice echoed, its source unknown. It seemed to come from all directions, gentle yet commanding. "You have died." I spun around, my heart racing, though I wasn't sure I still had a heart. I wanted to ask about my mother, about Ethan, to know if they were safe, but my throat felt constricted. Am I dead? I thought, unable to speak. Why me? They are still alive, the voice continued, as if reading my thoughts. But you have been chosen. Chosen? For what? I wondered, panic rising within me. I didn't want any mission. I just wanted to be with my family, to see my mother smile, to watch Ethan grow. But the voice offered no further explanation. Instead, a blinding light enveloped me, pulling me like a whirlwind. When the light faded, I found myself standing by the roadside, where our minivan was now a crumpled wreck. Firefighters and ambulances surrounded the scene. I saw my mother, her face bloody but conscious, holding Ethan tightly as he sobbed, his face twisted in pain and fear. I wanted to run to them, to hold them, but when I reached out, my hand passed through my mother as if I were a ghost. Am I a ghost? I thought, fear and helplessness intertwining. I stood frozen, watching my family suffer, powerless to comfort them. Days passed, but time seemed meaningless to me. I followed my mother and Ethan, watching as they were taken to the hospital. My mother had broken ribs and minor injuries, while Ethan had a fractured arm and a mild concussion. But their deepest pain wasn't physical. It was in my mother's hollow, despairing eyes, as if part of her soul had died with me. Ethan, though trying to be strong, couldn't hide his grief as he sat by my bedside, where my body was kept alive by machines. I wanted to scream, to tell them I was still here, but I was powerless. I tried touching them, writing on glass, anything to show I hadn't left. No one noticed me. I felt trapped in a nightmare, with no escape, no way back. One night, as I stood by Ethan's hospital bed, watching him sleep with his arm in a cast, the mysterious voice returned. You must accept your fate, it declared. You are a bridge between two worlds. You will guide lost souls to the light. I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to be a bridge or take on any mission. But the voice gave me no choice. It taught me to see other souls, those trapped between life and death. I saw a young girl, killed in an accident, searching for her loved one. I saw an old man, who died in his sleep, worried about his aging wife. I saw a soldier, burdened by war memories and the pain of lost comrades. Reluctantly, I began to help them. I listened to their stories in silence, guiding them to doors of light that appeared in the void. Each time a soul passed through, I felt a warm energy, as if I were doing something right. But deep inside, I was torn by the question, why me? I wasn't special. I was just an ordinary girl who loved her family, loved stargazing, and now, all I wanted was to return. Over the following weeks, I grew accustomed to my role, though my heart remained heavy. I moved between spaces, from desolate roads to abandoned houses, where lost souls gathered. Each soul was a story, a lesson, and I began to realize that helping them was also a way to confront my own pain. I met Sarah, a 16-year-old with dreams of becoming an artist. She died in a bicycle accident, held back by an unfinished painting meant for her mother. I guided Sarah back to her home, where she saw her mother had completed the painting and hung it in the living room. Sarah's smile as she stepped through the light brought me a fleeting sense of comfort, though sorrow still clung to me. I met Harold, a former teacher, trapped by worry for his wife, Margaret. I listened to his tales of their 50-year love, helping him send a thought through her dreams. When Harold saw Margaret smile in her sleep, he stepped through the light, leaving me with a mix of emptiness and hope. The soldier, Jack, was my greatest challenge. He carried the pain of war, believing he didn't deserve rest. I spent days with him, hearing stories of courage and sacrifice. I led him to a field where he once played as a child, silently helping him remember that life wasn't just war. When Jack passed through the light, I felt a sense of relief, as if I were closer to finding my own answers. A month passed, and I began to understand my mission, though my heart ached for my family. Each night, I returned to the hospital, where my body lay motionless, sustained by machines. My mother sat there, eyes red, holding my hand as if she could pull me back. Ethan, with his arm in a cast, sat nearby, his gaze a mix of hope and despair. I wanted to hold them, to say I was still here, but I was only an invisible shadow. One night, the mysterious voice returned. You have done well. But your mission is not complete. There is one soul you must help, a strong but suffering soul. Only then can you return. I was stunned. Return? My body was still alive, still had a chance. Hope flared within me, fragile but real. Why was I chosen? I wondered, my inner voice trembling. I'm not special. I'm just an ordinary girl. You are special because you chose to love, even through pain, the voice replied. You lived for your family, for your friends. That is why. The explanation didn't fully ease my pain, but it kindled a spark. I set out to find the final soul, determined to complete my mission and return to my mother and Ethan. I wandered through cities, fields, and forests, where lost souls lingered. A familiar presence drew me to a small house in suburban Colorado, the cabin where my family spent summer vacations. By the lake, I saw a man standing silently, his gaze heavy with sorrow. When he turned, my heart stopped. It was my father, David. Tears welled up, though I had no physical body. My father looked as he always had, with a sad but warm smile. I wanted to call his name, to run into his arms, but I stood still, watching. I felt his pain, the anguish of a man who believed he failed to protect his family. I approached, touching his hand, though it was only a ghostly gesture. In silence, I recalled our cherished memories, fishing trips, stargazing nights, moments when he made me laugh until my sides ached. I thought of my mother and Ethan, how they still lived, needing him to find peace so they could move forward. "You didn't fail," I told myself, as if he could hear. "You gave us all the love in the world." I led him to the door of light by the lake. Before stepping through, he looked at me, his eyes gentle, as if saying he was proud. I felt his warmth, even as a soul. As he entered the light, I whispered in my heart, "I love you, Dad." When the light faded, a powerful force pulled me back. I opened my eyes, the harsh white light of the hospital blinding me. The steady beeping of machines echoed like a rhythm of life. My mother sat by my bed, her eyes red, her hand clutching mine as if afraid I'd slip away again. Ethan stood nearby, his casted arm trembling slightly, his face alight with joy mixed with tears. I managed a weak smile, feeling the warmth of my mother's hand, the hope in Ethan's eyes, real, not an illusion. In that moment, I knew I had returned, not just in body, but with a heart carrying lessons from the other side. The first days after waking were exhausting, my body frail, but my spirit burned with a fierce desire to live with purpose, to share what I'd learned from my journey between life and death. I didn't tell my mother or Ethan about the mysterious voice, the souls I'd met, or my father. Those experiences were too sacred, too profound for words. But I knew I had to do something to make those lessons real, not just for myself, but for those around me. I started small. Each day, I wrote in a journal, capturing my thoughts on life's value. I wrote about Sarah, the girl with her unfinished painting, to remind myself every dream matters. I wrote about Harold, who loved his wife for a lifetime, to remember love transcends time. I wrote about Jack, the soldier scarred by war, to never forget courage and sacrifice. Those pages weren't just memories, they were a vow to live fully, wasting no moment. I realized actions spoke louder than words. I spent more time with my mother and Ethan, not just to heal their wounds but to remind us all that family is life's greatest treasure. I helped my mother cook simple dinners, listening as she shared the hardships of the months I was in a coma, feeling her unconditional love in every word. With Ethan, I encouraged him to share his dreams and fears, watching him slowly open up, his smile returning. Those quiet moments, though ordinary, proved how precious life is when we cherish those we love. I began sharing my story with others. At first, I wrote an anonymous blog, reflecting on my journey, not the soul's or mission, but how I learned to treasure each day. I wrote that life is fragile, each moment a gift, and love is the only way to make it meaningful. The post spread faster than I expected. Strangers left comments, sharing how they found motivation, reconnected with loved ones after years apart, or simply felt grateful to be alive. Inspired by their responses, I did more. I volunteered at the hospital where I'd been, talking with patients, listening to their stories, and sharing that every day is a chance to start anew. I gave a small talk at my college, recounting the accident on June 10, 2025, how I nearly lost everything, and how I learned that loving and respecting others is the key to a life without regrets. I saw students' eyes light up, their hands clasping friends tighter as they left. I knew I'd reached them, even if just a little. I also started a project called Letters of Love. I encouraged people to write handwritten letters to those they cared about, expressing gratitude and feelings often left unsaid. I placed letterboxes at my college, the hospital, and in the local community. Each week, I read the letters, apologies, thanks, declarations of love, and felt the power of connection. A man wrote to his wife, regretting not saying I love you more often. A girl thanked her mother for silent sacrifices. Each letter showed that love isn't just words, it's action that transforms lives. Through these efforts, I saw those around me change. My mother, once closed off by grief, joined cooking classes, rediscovering joy in small things. Ethan, once shy, grew confident, even writing short stories inspired by tales of courage I shared. My college friends learned to listen, respect differences, and cherish time together. My message, that life is a gift, that love is strength, not only changed them but healed me. Each night, I looked at the stars, seeking the constellations my father showed me. I knew he was out there, smiling, proud I'd found my purpose. I was no longer the frightened girl in the white void. I was Emily Harper, returned, carrying light from the other side to illuminate those around me. Months later, I returned to college, but I wasn't the carefree girl I'd been. I learned to cherish the small things, a sunny morning, a chat with friends, a hug from my mother. I kept writing, recording the stories of the souls I'd met, keeping them alive in my heart. I never heard the mysterious voice again, but I didn't need to. I'd found the answer to why me? Because I could love, guide, and heal, not just others, but myself.